pausing is disabled. Oops. This is Aaron versus GG. What's up, man? Oh my lord! Oh my lord! What happened to that dude? That's an F5 link. Hello, hello. Hope you guys doing fantastic today. In a clip just before, you saw how much damage we were doing yesterday, not today, because I had some upgrades since then. How much damage we were doing yesterday with perfect strikes. And I had many questions, massive amount of questions, and they look like this. Yo, Karn, how are you doing so much damage? Yo, Karn, wouldn't shield be better than dual wielding? And stuff like that. And it's totally understandable that people are confused for many reasons, because number one, tooltips are completely bugged, right? So for example, if I'm going to take this weapon off, my damage goes down, my damage goes actually up without this weapon, even though that is not true whatsoever, right? There's some other things, like for example, I don't know, many people from PoE 1 come over here and say that, you know, dual wielding is probably not good, because, you know, shields are going to be better. Is like this new shield Chernobog, which is like, you know, gives you 75% extra damage as fire damage and stuff like that. You know, dual wielding in PoE 1 is really really bad, and so on. So I'm going to make a video here and explain to you how to get very high damage. Explain the mechanics of dual wielding so that you basically understand how to multiply your damage over and over and over again, so that you can get to 2.5 million damage per perfect strike like we did in a clip, and of course way more than that, because I can make multiple upgrades to this build still. So yeah, let's jump into it. So before we're going to begin, like a short, I wanted to call it a history lesson. Let's just call it like how the dual wielding, generally speaking, in the history of PoE looked like. So in PoE 1, the dual wielding a long time ago was very strong, because you could use it basically as you could use the second weapon as a stat stick, right? Generally speaking, dual wielding by itself wasn't really increasing your damage apart from giving you more attack speed, so that's a nice bonus. But people were generally speaking using it as a stat stick, so basically trying to put as many extra damage modifiers on the weapons on the second weapon as possible, and increasing their damage this way. This was okay. It wasn't super broken or anything like this, but it was strong, right? Then dual wielding, generally speaking, got destroyed to the ground, and since then dual wielding in PoE 1 is like completely, I want to say like pretty much completely useless. For some, there is some exceptions, right? Like for example, dual strike of ambidexterity, but there's just some, you know, some small exceptions. But generally speaking, dual wielding in PoE 1, garbage. Now, how does that explain the PoE 2 and dual wielding in PoE 2, generally speaking, and where dual wielding is in PoE 2 and how strong it is? Now, when it comes to pure mechanics, dual wielding basically is magnitudes better in PoE 2 than PoE 1. Even in the previous patch in PoE 2 0.1, right, on the start of early access, I immediately noticed that dual wielding is very strong, and people are like always wondering, oh, how do you do this much damage? This is exactly why, because dual wielding inherently is, I don't want to say broken, but I'll be confident to say that it's just overpowered right now. It's too strong. It should probably get like a bigger damage penalty or something like that, because the damage numbers you receive while equipping like an appropriate second weapon is just probably, it's probably too much, right? So how does the dual wielding work mechanically? So basically how it works is that you put a second weapon, and by default you receive a 30% less damage penalty But contrary to how it looks like in PoE 1, in PoE 2, you basically do the damage from both weapons at the same time. So basically, you need to add damage from this weapon, you need to add damage from this weapon, and divide by 2, right? In PoE 1, it's completely different. Only the damage from the weapon that you hit with, this damage counts. In PoE 2, you hit with both at the same time. So that inherently means that, I'm just going to use calculator if you don't mind. So that inherently means basically that you're doing double damage, and it needs to be divided by 0.7 because you lose 30% damage, right? So you're sitting at 1.4. So basically, in a situation when we have two weapons that are the same damage, you get 40% more damage boost. By default, 40% more damage just by equipping a second weapon. So that's already that's a lot of damage. That's like almost like 2 damage supports. Having 2 extra damage support on every skill. It's not just on one skill, on every skill. So that's already pretty strong, right? But here's the part that breaks it. Like, I think that makes it too strong, right? So the thing is that when dual wielding, that of course also affects the one-handed weapons, but mods on one-handed weapons are not that strong. They're way stronger on two-handed weapons. On two-handed weapons, you can roll increased elemental damage with attacks to a very high level. The maximum roll, I believe, is 139%, which is tons, right? And you can roll plus up to plus 7 level of all melee skills. This, if you had one weapon, in my opinion, is already very strong, because you can roll both of these while having flat fizz and percent fizz, which will make a very high physical damage weapon that at the same time has these two modifiers, which is already very strong. But what breaks this entire combo is the fact that you can have both weapons. You can have 2 weapons like that, and that just it gives you like gargantuan amount of damage. It's too much, right? Because let's like play like a, I don't know, a math teacher or something, and let's calculate how much damage in total we're going to have by equipping second weapon. Okay. So, and let's just assume that it's going to be plus 7. So I have PoEDB here. We have stats over here. Sorry, I'm going to be dropping frames really hard right now, but it is what it is. This is great PC. So let's just assume that you have level 20 Leap Slam by default, right? Level 20, basic stuff. And then compare it to one weapon. Let's just say that you're wearing one good weapon with a shield. So with this one weapon, you're going to have level 27, which is 756% damage. And that's it, right? Now, what happens when you equip second weapon? So, the level will rise to 34. So how much more damage that is? So level 34 is 1,274 divided by, this was 756. Guys, do I even need to continue? Like, just because of one modifier on your second two-handed weapon, just because of one freaking modifier, you can have 6 mods. You're gonna get 68% more damage, and that is of course on top of what you had before, right? So before you had what? You had 40% more damage just because you're dual wielding, because you have more damage from more flat, right? So that's it. But that's not even it. That's not even everything, because on top of that, you can have increased elemental damage with attacks modifier, which is also global. It's also going to work like, you know, this stacks. Both of them will stack. So let's just say that compared to like a regular weapon, you're going to have, I don't know, let's just say, I think this is going to be fair. Let's just say that you have 500% increased damage in total in your build, right? So adding another weapon, let's just say that you're going to have 120% increased elemental damage with attacks on your second weapon, right? I think it's pretty fair. It's reasonable. So what is this gonna be? So you're gonna to this 500%, you're gonna add 120. So it's 620. So from this modifier, you get another 24% more damage, right? And this is pretty much where it ends. On top of that, you could have, for example, some other useful modifiers, like, for example, increased stun buildup, strength. You could get some more strength, some more life. You could like still potentially get something here, right? And that's basically how it works. So let's calculate in total how much more damage you're going to have by equipping a second weapon that has appropriate stats, right? So 1.4, the bonus from dual wielding, times 1. I believe it was 68 bonus from plus several to skills, times 1.024 the bonus from elemental damage with attacks. That's it. The second weapon gives you triple damage. Like I can't even stress enough how stupid this is. Like if dual wielding gave you like double damage or like 2.2% or something like that, that would be like, you know, it's understandable, right? You're going to be doing more damage compared to a weapon and a shield, and that's totally fine, right? It makes sense. But triple damage? Like this is, and you can have on top of that, you can have other stats here. Like this is absurd. It really, I mean, I don't want to say it's absurd, but this is the reason why dual wielding is absolutely amazingly strong. I want to keep on saying overpowered because someone at GG is going to watch the video and we're going to be freaking dual wielding is going to get freaking no damage bonus at all whatsoever. But that's it, triple damage bonus on top of the fact that you can have even more different modifiers. There is another small bonus that I didn't mention. Of course, two-handed weapons have 2 rune slots, which means that compared to a shield or one-handed weapons, you have double the rune slots. So that is huge because you can, for example, put increased skill speed runes, right? And all of a sudden your speed is faster also. So you don't even need to worry that much about two-handed weapons being slower with these runes. So that's crazy. So I hope that's going to close the debate on whether the dual wielding is worse or better than wearing a shield or something like that. Because now, don't get me wrong, wearing a shield is totally fine, and the shields are good. Getting to that 75% or even 65% or something like that block is going to be definitely very good defensively. But the amount of damage that you're gonna lose is just gargantuan. It really is. And I think that generally speaking, shields work the best with Warbringer, because Warbringer can block all hits. And generally speaking, the most dangerous hits will be AoE hits in this game. So I think that Warbringer with shields goes like bread and butter. Shields on other warrior builds, I can't just justify. I just cannot justify not using two-handed weapons. I can't. You saw the math, right? Math doesn't lie. It's triple damage because you're wearing your dual wielding. It's triple damage, assuming that you get appropriate weapons, right? So so that's it. Other ways, this is not going to be the only thing. Other ways you can increase your damage, generally speaking. So if you're looking to get even more damage, gloves is a very good slot where you can do so, because gloves roll up to +2 bonus to melee skills. On top of that, I do believe you can get a corruption +1, so that will be +3 in total. But nobody's going to have that. But +2 with some life, maybe a little bit of resistances, shouldn't be impossible to get. So this is a great place to get more damage. Both for this build, especially because both Leap Slam and Perfect Strike scale very, very hard. Excuse me. Scale very, very hard with skill levels, both of them. Something like Hammer of the Gods, the more levels you put in there, it's going to be becoming just a little bit better because they destroyed the scaling on this gem. But Perfect Strike and Leap Slam are still totally fine and will give you tons of damage. Now another thing, the reason why I started doing so much damage, this weapon, don't get me wrong, this weapon is much better now. But like in my video 2 days ago, I had literally meme tier weapons. I had weapons like this, like basically no extra damage, right? Just a little bit of fire. But what I invested into is the most important stats. So level of all melee skills and increased elemental damage with attacks. And someone is going to ask me, yo, Karn, but like this weapon doesn't do any damage. How do you have damage? Like, sure, you have these multipliers, but if you have no base damage, then like, where does your damage come from? This is where it comes from rings. Rings is a perfect if your weapon, if you're on a low budget and your weapons don't have enough damage, then you can try to squeeze as much damage as possible by just getting elemental. These should be generally speaking cheap and cheaper, right? And generally speaking, this weapon, once again, I bought this weapon for 10 exalts. Like I yesterday on stream and 2 days ago, people were linking me weapons that they bought similar to this one. They were literally 3 to 5 exalts. So nobody's going to tell me that this is expensive. This one, sure, this is more expensive. And by buying this weapon, I got 40% more damage. Sure, I bought it for 5 divines. But you can still clear the entire screens with weapons like these, if you set up your build properly. And what I mean by that is adding flat fire damage to your rings. This is very important because flat fire damage, because of how Avatar of Fire works, some of the damage that you're going to have is lost, not on Perfect Strike, but on Leap Slam, because Perfect Strike by default converts some of the damage to fire damage. So with Avatar of Fire, you just convert 100%. So from physical damage, you're going to have 100% efficiency, right? But for Leap Slam, you're going to have only 75% of your physical damage is actually going to get converted to fire, and the remaining is lost. So the fact that you can have pure fire on your rings, especially if you have lower damage on your weapons, is going to be fantastic, because you're going to get this raw amount, very high amount of raw damage, 27 to 52 to both of your weapons. That's why it's so strong. Having flat damage on your rings, and of course percent fire damage would also be very nice. But I think the most important stat, actually contrary to what I said yesterday, I believe, which was a mistake, it wasn't a mistake. It is true that flat fire damage becomes worse and worse the better your weapons start to get and the more damage, flat damage you have. But on lower budgets, this is a great, fantastic way of solving your damage problems, if you have any. Just add as much flat fire on your rings as you can, and add fire modifier quality, right? Even better if that was a breach ring, because I could add another 20%, but you know, breach rings are quite rare this league. So rings, fantastic slot to increase your damage further, especially if you're on low budget, because it's not going to be that expensive to get something like this, right? None of my, except for this weapon, I didn't pay more than 1 divine for a single piece of this equipment. Not a single one. So, and once again, if I had 10 exalt weapon, I would lose like 30% damage or something like that. So I wouldn't lose that much. Another thing that people perhaps do not realize is that Zov's Blood, I saw many people in different places asking me what amulets they should use. Zov's Blood, just use Zov's Blood, literally. Zov's Blood, boys, period. If you have enough money, which is once again not going to be expensive, if you have enough money to get 15% increased life Zov's Blood, that's perfect, because you just add 20% life modifier quality and you have 18% maximum life amulet, which is fantastic, because its percent life is very hard to get. But one of the reasons, the main reason I would say why this amulet is so powerful is because enemies in your presence, so in this area, permanently have fire exposure, and that means that they have permanently minus 20% resistance, fire resistance, and this goes of course down below 0. So if you penetrate your opponents to 0 resistance, they're gonna have minus 20, and then minus, for example, 50 with flammability or something, which I don't even use, by the way, yet, because I just didn't need to even put it in, because I just do too much damage. You saw the Xesht from before, right? He died in 2 hits. So yeah, this is absolute. And the best part about this is that it's a very budget amulet. And even better, it has fire resistance, which is the most important resistance for this build, because by getting fire resistance, you get cold and lightning at the same time, because we play Will Smith, right? So apart from like insane amulets late game that would cost 100 divines, with literally +3 to melee skills, life, percent life, strength, all attributes, an amulet like this, right? Nothing is going to beat this. Nothing is going to beat this amulet. This amulet is cracked. Amulet is just cracked. For how cheap it is, it's cracked. It's best, like it's almost like you don't need to ever exchange that. You get it once and you can be technically done forever, unless you want to like really push the character to like the the highest tiers of damage. If your plan late game is to get above 10 million damage with a single perfect strike, which I did some math, I do believe is 100% doable, and I think that tomorrow or in 2 days I should be doing about 5 million damage per perfect strike. Then yeah, then you can think about something giga expensive later on. But yeah, another small thing I would like to explain. The other question that is the most popular one is when you're supposed to swap to Avatar of Fire and Giant's Blood. And I'm going to put it very simply, very simply. You're supposed to swap to Avatar of Fire basically the moment you get Zov's Blood. That's it. And then you also want to invest into these points, because at this point you'll be doing pure fire damage, so these two will be important to get at least some fire penetration. Of course, the more jewels you're gonna get with fire penetration at this point, the better, because you will be penetrating more enemies to 0% resistance. So basically that's it. You get this, you allocate this. That's how it works. And number two, for the similar question, where am I supposed to allocate Giant's Blood? The answer is also very simple. You're supposed to allocate Giant's Blood the moment A, you get enough strength to wield your weapons, your two-handed weapons, and B, you get these weapons physically, right? You buy them. The moment you buy weapons that you can use, two-handed weapons that you have enough strength to wear, you allocate Giant's Blood and you swap to two-handed weapons. That's it. That's all there is to it, right? Before that, I think I was running with one-handed weapons until level 80, and it was totally fine, right? So it's that simple. It's really that simple. So yeah, I'm going to drop the POB of my current character once again in the description. If you guys gonna have any more questions, please feel free to ask. And also, if you want to join the stream, because I'll be streaming after uploading this video, please also feel free to do so and ask more questions on the stream. I try to answer every single one. So if someone will have some other problems, then please do so. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you next time.